Imagine this. One day, you stop and take a quiet moment to reflect on the world you live in. All the sounds seem to echo in your ears, the rhythm of society pushes you forward, and those around you are busy with their lives, chasing their goals. You've probably been caught up in it too, making the same choices, chasing the same dreams, following the same societal standards and expectations. But suddenly, you stop and reflect on it all. You realize that every seemingly insignificant choice, every decision made to go along with the crowd, seems to push you toward a future you don't truly desire. What you're doing is living the future defined by others, not the life you want for yourself. What you're chasing are goals set by others, not the voice inside you. You can't help but ask, is this really the life I want? Here's a direct question: if you see through the essence of life, why do you still stay in this flow of society? You begin to question, do you really need to be this busy, to work this hard, to prove your worth? And so, solitude becomes an inevitable choice. It's not a negative emotion, but an awakening, a power that transcends the noise of the world and returns to the inner self. When you see through life's surface, do you have the courage to choose solitude, to step away from the crowd, and face the true self within? This choice might bring loneliness, but it's your choice, the courage to live for yourself. You may ask, doesn't that mean rejecting others, rejecting society? Choosing solitude is not about escaping, but about beginning the journey of self-discovery. In solitude, you have the chance to truly listen to your inner voice, to see those needs and desires you've been too busy to acknowledge. But before all of this, you must face a harsh truth: the fragmentation of life, the overwhelming flow of information, and the voices of others have already taken you far from your core. You've even become accustomed to this passive way of life, used to accommodating others and compromising. You've gotten used to the opinions of the outside world, even used to self-denial. So, does true awakening mean giving up everything and choosing solitude? No, it means choosing to face the abyss within and embracing your true self in the solitude. And when you begin to question these external factors, you start to reclaim the strength that rightfully belongs to you. The ultimate question: if you see through this world, if you see all the illusions and constraints, how will you choose? Will you continue to go along with the crowd, or will you have the courage to walk that solitary yet true path of self? Why do you fear solitude? You might think that solitude is an unbearable pain, a state of being disconnected and ignored by society. But when you examine the psychological and philosophical roots behind it, you'll discover that solitude is not just caused by the outside world, it's actually a fear that lies deep within you. You fear solitude, not because you truly can't stand being alone, but because solitude forces you to face the self that you've been avoiding, the deep needs you've been suppressing. In modern society, solitude seems to have become increasingly terrifying. You're encouraged to fit into groups, to please the masses, to follow the so-called path to success. The glamorous image of social media tells you that only by being with others can you prove your worth, only by comparing yourself to others can you measure your achievements. This cultural conditioning makes you gradually lose yourself, until you begin to believe that if you are not recognized by others, you do not exist. But this dependence on others' approval comes with a profound psychological crisis. Jung once said, "We cannot truly know ourselves until we face our shadows." And this shadow is the part of you that is alone. It is the part of you that you've never faced, the emotions and thoughts you are afraid to admit. When you lack the courage to confront your shadow, you fall into an endless pursuit of others' approval, never able to find your true self. So, what is the true meaning of solitude? Solitude is not about being completely disconnected from the world, but rather, it is about having a deep conversation with yourself. When you begin to find your voice in solitude, you will realize that solitude is not to be feared, rather, it gives you the chance to detach from the distractions of the world and reconnect with yourself, to accept all the emotions and thoughts within. Solitude, in fact, is the truest encounter with yourself. Philosopher Sartre once said, "We are thrown into this world, destined to face solitude and freedom." In every decision of life, you will face solitude, not just physical solitude, but mental solitude. Every time you make your own choice, it is a solitary decision. When you choose solitude, you choose to face the unknown, to face the abyss of life. And it is this solitude that urges you to explore yourself more deeply and find the meaning of your life. So, why do we fear solitude and even choose to avoid it? It stems from our lack of trust in ourselves, from not having a clear understanding of our own needs and desires. We have gotten used to the voices of others, to the expectations of society, and have even started losing touch with our true selves. We rely on others because we fear facing the deep-seated fears within ourselves, the emptiness and confusion we refuse to acknowledge. In this situation, solitude becomes a huge mirror, reflecting the parts of you that you refuse to face. It shows you the suppressed desires, the ignored pain, and the emotions you refuse to touch. The reason you fear solitude is because it forces you to face these truths you've been avoiding. But when you begin to face solitude, you will discover that it brings inner awakening. It frees you from the expectations of others and brings you closer to your inner needs. In the time spent alone, you will realize that the part of you once ignored and hidden has found its meaning of existence once again. You are no longer the appendage of the group, no longer the image others expect of you, but a living, breathing individual with your own thoughts, desires, and dreams. Solitude is no longer something you run from, but the wellspring of your inner strength. The time you spend with yourself is your truest moment. Have you ever thought about this? Your current life is not the result of one sudden decision, but of countless small choices made over time. These choices, made without your conscious awareness, have quietly shaped the trajectory of your life. And among them, the most profound choice is whether you dare to face solitude, whether you dare to make decisions that are truly your own. When you choose to blend in with others, when you choose to conform to society's expectations, you'll notice that, over time, you begin to lose your inner independence. You become more dependent on the voices around you, more neglectful of your inner desires. You begin to habitually follow the crowd, to conform, and no longer dare to question the rules and standards that govern your life. You might think that this life is fine, stable, comfortable, without too many ups and downs. But the problem is, your soul has slowly grown numb in this daily routine of choices. You've lost touch with your true self, you've lost the courage to pursue what your heart truly desires. You no longer ask yourself, is this really what I want? Instead, you ask, everyone else is doing this, why can't I? These invisible consequences are quietly shaping your life. You might think these small choices are insignificant, even trivial. Yet, it is these seemingly minor decisions, like little pebbles, that gradually change the direction of your life. You might overlook the power of these choices, until one day, when you look back, you realize you've ended up somewhere you never expected. This is the inertia effect in psychology. Once you start choosing a certain direction, your mind automatically adapts to this pattern, forming fixed behaviors and cognitive models. You think you're making choices, but in fact, you've already been bound by past decisions. You might think you're free, able to make changes, but in many cases, you've unknowingly become a slave to your past choices. Similarly, your avoidance of solitude is also quietly shaping your life. When you fear solitude and choose to escape it, you begin to rely on the external world to fill the emptiness inside. You chase social interactions, seek approval, and crave acceptance, while neglecting the true need for solitude that lies deep within. By avoiding solitude, you end up getting trapped, and one day, you'll ask yourself, who am I? What am I truly pursuing? This is not a direct path, but rather a gradual erosion. You don't consciously realize it at each moment of decision, but these seemingly harmless little choices are slowly eating away at your independence and your self-awareness. And you've never stopped to ask, what are the true consequences of these decisions? Solitude is, in fact, a dialogue with your inner self. If you dare to face solitude, you'll realize that all these invisible consequences are not as unbearable as you imagined. Instead, it is these solitary moments that provide you with the greatest strength, helping you rediscover the true direction of your life. And this inner awakening is the key to changing the trajectory of your life. You are no longer the person others see you as, you are the person who stands in solitude, brave enough to have a conversation with yourself. This process is not easy, but it allows you to reclaim your sovereignty. You are no longer a passive individual following the crowd, you are an individual capable of independent thought and independent living. When you begin to face solitude, to confront your inner shadows, you'll realize that these once feared consequences are not as terrifying as they seemed. On the contrary, it is in these moments of solitude that you will find your greatest power, and rediscover the true direction of your life. When you start questioning, you have already begun the path of awakening. You've realized that you've been trapped in an invisible cage. This cage isn't made of iron bars or chains, but of the limitations you've set for yourself, the result of countless choices made day after day, year after year. You once thought you were choosing freely, but when you look back, you realize you've already been enslaved by these very choices. To break this cage, you first need to make one decision, to bravely face your inner self. This is not easy because you've become accustomed to the expectations of others, to comparing yourself with others, and to the labels that the world has placed on you. However, it is these very labels that form the limitations of your life, preventing you from truly connecting with your inner self, from hearing your true voice. Step 1. Stop comparing yourself to others and stop catering to external expectations. You must learn to stop comparing yourself to others and stop relying on external validation to determine your worth. Everyone has their own uniqueness, everyone's path is different. But you've been trapped in the same illusion, thinking your value must be built upon the approval of others. You've suppressed your inner voice, put others' opinions and standards first, and gradually, your life has become less and less like your own. The first step to breaking free from this cage is to stop this external-driven way of living, and start asking yourself, what do I truly want? You need to let go of the thoughts that bind you, stop relying on the answers others give you, and instead dig deep into your own inner desires. Step 2. Learn to face uncertainty and solitude. When you start questioning your life choices, you'll face a profound challenge, uncertainty. You will no longer be sure of which path to take, no longer certain of what kind of person you should become. The meaning of this is, you've truly begun to own the freedom of choice. But the price of this freedom is solitude, meaning you no longer depend on others to define yourself, you start taking responsibility for your own choices. Solitude is not an escape, it is a source of strength. It frees you from the distractions of the outside world and allows you to re-examine your life, to rediscover your true self. You must learn to accept solitude, because it is only in solitude that you can hear your own voice, only in solitude can you face your deepest needs. Step 3. Let go of the pursuit of perfection and accept your own imperfections. The final step in breaking the cage is accepting your own imperfection. In your pursuit of approval from others, you've lost the tolerance for your own imperfections. You've been chasing an ideal, perfect life, one without mistakes, without failure. But life is never perfect. It's filled with uncertainty and challenges, filled with failures and growth. Accepting the dark side of yourself, your flaws, and your imperfections is key to liberating yourself and breaking free from the cage. When you begin to accept your imperfection, You no longer need external standards to evaluate yourself, and you no longer live for the approval of others. You begin to live for yourself, making choices that belong to you. True rebellion does not require external change, it begins with the awakening within you. When you break free from external constraints and reclaim your voice, your life will become vibrant and full of freedom. You are no longer the person others see, you are yourself, a person who dares to make choices, who dares to live authentically. True freedom lies in choosing yourself. You might have thought that freedom means doing anything without constraints, breaking free from restrictions. You might have thought that escaping constraints and responsibility is the path to freedom. But the truth is, true freedom is not like that. True freedom comes from self-acceptance, from daring to choose your own path, from facing solitude, and from listening to the voice within. Your life becomes truly free when you start choosing yourself. This is not an easy road. It's full of challenges, pain, and confusion. You will face solitude, you will encounter misunderstanding, criticism, and pressure. But it is these trials that form the crucible of your awakening. You are not trapped by society, but by your own beliefs. You are bound by society's rules and expectations, and these rules and expectations are ones you accepted and chose at some point. When you start questioning these rules, you will realize that the true dilemma doesn't come from the outside world, but from your own inherent views and cognitive patterns. Thus, the final awakening is about reclaiming the sovereignty of your life. You will realize that true freedom is not the absence of fear, but the courage to face your fears and uncertainties. Freedom is not about being unrestrained, but about choosing the solitary path, following the life your heart truly desires. Philosopher Nietzsche once said, "You must become who you are meant to be." This means that your life only gains meaning when you truly choose yourself. Only when you start letting go of others' expectations, rejecting external standards, and listening to the voice inside you, will you be able to live a life that truly belongs to you. What you've never realized is that you've been limiting yourself. You thought you couldn't change, that you couldn't break free from society's framework, but this is driven by your inner fears and anxieties. When you begin to face these fears and challenge the limitations you've set for yourself, you will realize that your world will change dramatically. Freedom is not about avoiding responsibility. Many people mistakenly think that freedom means avoiding responsibility. They choose to avoid pain, challenges, and the self-imposed demands and responsibilities. However, true freedom comes from accepting responsibility, from courageously owning your choices. You choose solitude not because you're avoiding others, but because you're willing to face the consequences of your choices, willing to take responsibility for your life. You begin to live for yourself, choosing your own path. The power of this choice is something you've never experienced before. It makes you feel incredibly strong, as if you have the ability to change everything. True freedom is not doing as you please, it is choosing the path that truly belongs to you, choosing the self that truly belongs to you. You will realize that the painful experiences you once endured, the moments that made you lost, confused, or hesitant, were all pushing you toward your true self. All these pains and challenges will become the source of your self-growth, helping you find your light in the darkness, helping you find your strength in solitude. The final awakening is when, in the deepest solitude, you find your truest self. It is no longer a distant dream, but your real-life experience. When you dare to face solitude, dare to face the fear deep within you, you will discover that the meaning of life unfolds in this awakening. You are no longer the image others see, you are yourself, a person who dares to choose, who dares to break through. From this moment on, you will no longer follow others' expectations, but will live the life that belongs to you. You will possess endless strength because you chose to be yourself.